Well, it looks like this is everyone. Welcome to the Emergency Management Application Session. And we're going to go ahead and start today with Carla Bissett. She is the Web EOC Administrator with the State Department of Public Safety, and she'll present on Sparta.
I got all nervous for nothing. So I am the Web EOC Administrator for our NC Sparta application, which is a web-based application that we use in our division. We use it for daily operations, activations for the EOC, which we really use this from October through January quite a bit. We use it for exercises. We do an exercise a month. And we have our local emergency managers that use the software also. We have about 2,600 users. About half of those were created during Hurricane Matthew. We have 1,000 positions and several groups, and we maintain about 87 boards. And we'll talk about boards in just a minute. But there are several components that make up NC Sparta. So we have the Web EOC application. We have a .NET application that works within Web EOC. It's our common operating picture. SQL reports are a big part of NC Sparta now. We have multiple feeds coming in, multiple feeds going out of the system now. We have Web Fusion, and that's a tool that allows folks that have their own Web EOC version to communicate, share data. And then we have a lot of email capability within a lot of our boards. So this is Sparta. Users come in, they post data to the different boards. A board can be a significant data. It can be a county opening up a shelter. It can be counties telling us that they're evacuating, states of emergency. All that data goes into our enterprise database and eventually gets fit right back out into the workstation viewer. But then we also have a lot of external data sources that feed into Web EOC. So we have a feed coming in from Duke for power outages and for nuclear, National Weather Service alerts, the DOT TIMS feed, and then some of the Web EOC licensed entities. We have their data coming in, such as the hospital system. Some of that gets fed directly to the viewer, and then some goes through the database. We also are sending some of our data out toward the Web EOC licensed counties through that Web Fusion process. And then we have a Ready NC mobile app. And so now anytime a shelter is open or counties evacuate, that data automatically goes there. So a citizen can pull up their Ready NC mobile app and determine what's the best shelter for them. And then again, we utilize SQL reporting services quite a bit. So most boards have 2 or 3 different types of reports built in depending on who you are. So this is Web EOC's control panel. Most of the boards here have some type of geography attached to them, whether it be the lat, the long, the county. EM has their own ways of breaking up the states. We have areas and branches. Some of the non-operational boards, like our day-to-day boards, would be daily ops reporting, where we report on different kinds of nuclear facility interruptions, chemical spills, transportation, county profiles. The counties have to keep their shelter information up to date. So there's a shelter board that they do there. This came in handy during Hurricane Matthew because of shelters requesting generators, and we needed a very quick list of the shelters that were in there that were not pre-wired for generators. So we have multiple reports. Some of the operational boards, again, we have a special medical needs registry that the counties maintain, SIG events. So at any given time, we can see where the counties are posting their flooding information, any kind of damages. We do all our resource requests through here. We have a damage assessment application that we just built, kind of tested it during Hurricane Matthew, and we use Esri's collector tool for that and Web EOC's API to publish that board. So just an example of some of the ways we collect data and then show that information. So when we activate, the counties will open up their shelter board. They'll open up that shelter. They'll put how many occupants are in there. And then we always have some type of common operating picture behind that data. So at any given time, when we see that all the shelters lighting up are purple, then we know that the counties that are more inland are going to have to start maybe possibly opening up shelters to support that. We do a lot with resource tracking. Emergency management's main goal during an event is coordination. And so when a county needs a resource request, they'll post that through WebEOC into a board, and then we're responsible for tracking that information. So anytime you see a point that's green, that's good. Yellow is a little bit behind, and then any red points would be where that resource request has not been acted upon. We have a vendor reentry board also. We use that quite a bit during Hurricane Matthew. So vendors will sign up with the emergency management, and they'll classify themselves as either a life, a health and safety, or economic well-being. So when there's a disaster in the county emergency management will go in there and they'll restrict any Walmarts, any moms and pops, Echo Drugs. We have tons of vendors in there, but the county will go in and restrict the vendors for coming in. And then we have an email process, and it looks at the latitude and longitude for all the facilities in that county that were just closed down. It shoots them an email that says at this point it's not safe to go in. Water's not receded yet. We have a lot of debris on the ground. Then once life gets a little bit normal, they'll start sending in the life categories or the health and safety. So that's a couple examples of boards and how we are using our workstation viewer to monitor that data. So when we built our common operating picture, there were lots of questions that we needed to answer. We need to know where the open shelters are. We need to know if a county asked for a resource to be dropped off somewhere, that there would be somebody there with it open so they could get the generator off the truck. Where are the watches and the warnings? Something that we also did during Hurricane Matthew is utilize this tool called Tiger Swan, and that allowed us to do some real-time tracking of personnel and equipment out in the field. When the logistics folks who are responsible for getting resources out to a county, if they need to go out to a particular county to deliver a generator, and that CRDP, the county receiving distribution point, if it hasn't been opened, it's black there, then we know that logistics has to work with that county to make sure somebody is available. Otherwise, the resource request is stalled at that point. So there's a lot of communication and a lot of coordination going on during activations. The next few examples are some slides from the GIS folks. These are some of the data that was requested from our GIS section. And so Wood Lake Dam inundation, we requested to see what was happening there. The potential flooding we were looking at. And this was an example of the eastern branch having a laminated, like size E map with scribble on it. And then they would erase it and they would scribble on it again. So they decided to work with Hope Morgan's group, and they built a database and then published that map. And then this map could be shared with all of our users when we were activated. We do a lot of analysis when we're activated, and we consume all of the different maps and reports into WebEOC. So at any given time, we are all looking at the same modeling and making good decisions based on that data. This particular report compares a advisory 36 to an advisory 34, and then you can get an idea of the impact on critical infrastructure, agriculture, population, and so forth. So this is a slide I thought was really cool. I stole it from our engineers. So we have building footprints, we have parcel data, and then we have the first floor elevations. So during the disaster, we were able to create services, consume those in WebEOC, and anytime the engineers ran their modeling again, we could consume that into WebEOC, and then we would get different reports, hotspot maps, and then like building counts to determine where the damages were going to occur.
It also gives them the ability to develop plans.
So this was an example of in Brunswick County, buildings by in the flood zones, and there's a count. So the more in there, the darker the color.
To make our schools safer for students, staff, and visitors throughout North.
Again, multiple reports that they publish, breaking it up by residential and non-residential. And I think, John, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think North Carolina was one of the first states to ever get a federal declaration just based on the GIS modeling that was happening. So that's correct. So most of the time when we're activated and FEMA rolls in, they tell us what's going on. They tell us where the flooding is going to be. We actually have a really robust engineering and GIS section. And so they were able to go in there and say, we have better data, let us run the analysis. And then we came out with better numbers, better maps. And then again, they relied strictly on that for our federal declaration of about 50 counties. So where we are now, we're working on a resource management application now. One of the biggest pieces in that is they have installed Portal. And so we're moving away from this .NET application that it was great at the time, but we have pretty much outgrown it. And we have a couple of web app prototypes and a couple of operations dashboards. And so we have a lot of folks that have to brief our governor and our senior staff. And we're doing a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of PowerPoints, and we're hand jamming all the data. And so we hope to take a lot of their tools and be able to put those in the prototype. So when they go to speak, they're actually consuming data from boards and not displaying old and outdated information. And that's what I have. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Hope? You good? Thank you. Was that where you're starting, John? I'll let you.
All right.